Kia ora, good evening. A big hint from Finance Minister Bill English today that despite solid economic growth, returning a surplus this year will be challenging. New Zealand remains on track for more jobs, more economic growth and rising incomes, but falling dairy prices and low inflation will make it tough returning to surplus. Mr English says the lower commodity prices and low inflation mean the dollar value of the country's economic output will not grow as fast as previously expected, affecting farm and company incomes, and is expected to flow into the government books as lower revenue. The government's annual budget policy statement will be issued on December 16th, along with Treasury's half-year economic performance and fiscal update. The Edendale Fonterra expansion is well underway as it reaches its third month of site development. Sharon Rees visited the site to see just how much progress has been made on the project.
The groundwork has been completed and Fonterra's Edendale site is beginning to show the first stages of its $150 million expansion.
The progress has been really good. So we started in September with the groundworks through to where we are now with some steelwork going up ready to take some of the roofing. So on track, should have the roof on before Christmas, and then in the new year we'll be looking at installing all of the processing equipment to be ready for operation in August next year.
Can you explain what areas are being expanded and why?
Yeah, so we're building 3 new plants on site. So we're building a milk protein concentrate plant, an RO plant and an anhydrous milk fat plant. And the products from the MPC plant and RO plant go through to 2 of our existing dryers to be dried, and that's going to increase our site processing capacity by about 1.4 million litres a day. So the investment's really going into increasing our capacity, milk processing capacity on site, but a benefit of that is actually gives us some diversification or optionality with our products. So making some MPC allows us to make some high value product and also give us some flexibility.
And of course, increasing capacity means creating more job opportunities for the region.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the great benefits. So with the additional processes we're putting on site, it's going to create around about 38 new jobs on site, which is really great for the Southland economy.
What other ways will this benefit Southland? Yeah,
so I guess with all of the construction work that's going on, obviously that creates a lot of roles during the construction phase of the project. I guess longer term, once the plant's up and running, there are some other spin-offs into the economy. I guess we've talked about the new jobs, but also some of the services that go into a new plant around contractors and the like. So will be some other spin-offs into the economy.
You talked about subcontracting and contracting. Would the subcontractors be local?
Yes, a lot of the subcontractors that are coming in for the construction, like the actual building construction, some of the stainless steel fabrication and electrical work, a lot of that labour and those resources do come out of Southland.
While there are no further expansion plans for Southland's site after the project's completion, Fonterra is in the process of expanding different sites throughout the country. Sharon Rees, South Today News.
A delegation from the Southern Institute of Technology visited China last week in a bid to strengthen relationships with prominent tertiary institutions. The visit was conducted shortly after Prime Minister John Key visited Western China, saying New Zealand had an increasingly close relationship with China. SIT was pleased to capitalise on the raised awareness of the Prime Minister's visit and said there were talks of a partnership delivery of programs following meetings held between the institutes. SIT's contribution to international tertiary education was recognised earlier this year when it was awarded the 2014 Southland Export Corporation Recognition Award. Both New Zealand and Australia will soon receive one of the leading internet movie and TV subscription services. Netflix offers a range of movies, television shows and documentaries online and is set to hit New Zealand in March 2015. Internet users will be able to subscribe to service and instantly watch a selection of their favourite movies and TV shows in high definition quality. The service will be available to Kiwis on a variety of internet-connected devices, including smart TVs, tablets, smartphones and gaming consoles. Netflix has gained more than 53 million members since launching its services in 2007 and is subscribed to by in more than 50 countries. Organisers of the 2014 Santa Parade, which is set to hit the streets of Invercargill this Saturday, are confident the weather will play along. Up to 1,000 people will be involved in the 2014 Santa Parade as they support the close to 80 entries, including floats, cars, tractors and other vehicles. The parade begins at 2 p.m. at the Gala Street Reserve before heading along D, turning left on Tay and looping back to Gala Street. Organiser Alice Pottinger says if the weather's unsuitable, the parade will be cancelled until next year, but at this stage they have fingers crossed that Santa will be making his annual appearance. After the break, it's Antibiotics Awareness Week. We catch up with local GP Dr Pat Hastelow about antimicrobial resistance. Welcome back. This week is Antibiotics Awareness Week. It's a worldwide initiative to promote a greater understanding of antibiotic resistance and responsible use. Antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, is happening around the world, mainly because of inappropriate and overuse of antibiotics. That's when bacteria, fungus, virus or parasites no longer respond to antimicrobial drugs. I spoke to GP Dr Pat Hastelow about how antibiotics changed the medicinal world and superbugs.
Well, they were a revolution when they first came about, that now we could treat bacterial infections, whereas in the 1930s and 40s people would die of them. Now at least we have something that we can use easily to get rid of bacterial infections. So they certainly have their place.
At what level as a GP are you prescribing antibiotics as opposed to just letting the body's own immune system take care of bacterial infection?
Yeah, I guess that's the big issue. It's trying to work out whether the person has a viral infection or a bacterial infection. And that's the challenge when people come in, is to work out how long they've had the infection for, the symptoms that might indicate that it's bacterial rather than a viral thing, and just to see if the person is getting better on their own without having extra medications. We certainly do encourage people to do good things for themselves, like resting and drinking plenty of fluids and taking vitamin C and that sort of thing. But there does come a time when an antibiotic is needed because the person's been sick for a long time, or they're very sick. They're very unwell with the illness that they have, and it's a bacterial thing.
How often are you coming across people who have bacteria conditions that you can't treat?
Well, that's not very common. It's for us in general practice. It's probably more common in hospital, and I think they fear that because they have really high-powered antibiotics that they can use. If they use them too frequently, though, then you've got the issue that then those bugs become resistant to the super antibiotics, and so then we get superbugs, and no one can treat them because we don't have the antibiotics to use.
Are antibiotics over-prescribed in this country?
They probably are, and I think there's a few reasons for that. The fault sometimes on the part of the GP is that we feel we have to give people something, and usually it's something with a script. We feel like we haven't done anything if we say, drink fluids and rest and take time off work. I think there's an expectation also in the community that, I'll go to the doctor and antibiotics will cure me. And that's not always the case, and so we often find that there's a resistance to, well, just give me the antibiotics anyway, is often what we hear, and that the person's going to use them and it probably is inappropriate. That doesn't happen all the time, and I think people are becoming a bit more aware of the problem of using antibiotics too much, but it's a sort of a slow education process for both GPs and the community.
You talk about potentially being fear within the hospital environment about these superbugs, but really is the community not across that as yet, you think?
Probably not so much here in New Zealand, but it could come. For example, I look after a lady who has a number of health issues, but she also has an indwelling catheter in her bladder, but when she gets an infection, it's a bug that no antibiotic can treat it. I send it off to the lab and it comes back with resistant to every antibiotic that I can use, and so then she just has to drink plenty of fluids and just flush it out of her system, and hopefully her immune system sort of takes over, but she can be pretty unwell while that's all happening, and that's a bit scary. because as a doctor it feels like you can't do anything to help.
And potentially puts her at risk to other infection.
Absolutely, yeah.
If they're coming here to see you for medical advice and they're reluctant to have an antibiotic prescribed for them, what then?
Yeah, well that's when I guess I tell them to go and visit the health food shop and have a chat to someone who's expert in those alternative methods, or to try and boost their own immune system by resting. I think, unfortunately, and I'm probably as bad as anybody else, you get sick and you don't want to take time off work, so you kind of keep on going, and that's probably the worst thing you can do, really. If you took a day off at the beginning, you may well get better quite a lot quicker and wouldn't have to have any antibiotics or anything to improve.
Is there a mindset out there with some people that they just don't want to take antibiotics at all?
Yes, there is. They're few and far between, I have to say, and it's interesting because they close their mind to the whole idea of antibiotics, and in some ways that's good, because you know then that if they'd have to be really sick before they actually took an antibiotic. But sometimes when those people are really sick, they're still resistant to the idea of treating it simply with an antibiotic, and so they are the people, I guess, that can end up in hospital sometimes because they haven't been able to get the appropriate treatment at the appropriate time. A lot of what GPs do is around education to people when they come in, to say, well, this is a viral thing, antibiotics are not going to help you, because I think people come to the doctor expecting that, oh, I'll just get an antibiotic and I'll be better, and sometimes that's right and sometimes it isn't, and it's about sort of getting people to accept that we would give them the right treatment at the right time, but if antibiotics aren't right, then they can't really hang out wanting those things if they're not going to help them.
And that's all from News Tonight. Coming up on Sport, part 2 of the season wrap with Stags coach Brad Moore. From the news team, good night.